Welcome to Cognossance. My name is Judy. Today is my birthday, and as I do every year, I've been quite reflective the last couple of days. And I know that I need to do some energy clearing for myself. I used to do it when I was first learning. I would clear a little bit of stuff every day. And now that I've done a lot of work on myself, I tend to only do it every few months. But every year around my birthday, I get pretty reflective. And it seems to be one of those times where, as we say in the energy healing world, it's time to do the work. But I've been procrastinating because I know that it's going to be a little bit heavy this year. And so I decided to avoid it for a couple of days because I am a procrastinator at heart. And I've decided to introduce you to something even stranger than energy healing work. I've been thinking about this for a couple of months and talking myself out of it repeatedly, because what I'm going to share with you today is even stranger than energy healing work. That's out there enough as it is, but I've decided just to go for it because ultimately at the end of the day, who really cares if it's strange? I'm just going to do it. Aside from being an energy healer, I'm also a little bit clairvoyant. I'm quite a bit clairaudient, and I have tendencies towards mediumship. I don't do any of that on a planned basis. It is pretty random, and it's something I've never chosen to really explore because I just find it strange. I find it strange and uncomfortable to even talk about it. But during my path of doing a lot of energy clearing work on myself, it's just become more and more prevalent. It's happening more and more often that I receive messages, and most of the time the messages are for me. I'm very clear on what the message means. I know it's for me. It's actually not really clairvoyant, meaning I'm not really seeing into the future. What I've realized is the messages that I receive, which, by the way, most of them come in an auditory fashion. I hear the messages rather than see visions most of the time. I've realized that what comes in for me is it's really more inspirational, or it's confirmation about some lesson that I've learned or some karmic gate I'm about to pass through, and not really predictive. So there's not so much seeing into the future, although sometimes that does happen for sure. A couple of months ago, actually I'll backtrack a little bit. What happens to me usually, or what was happening to me, was for quite a number of years, I'm gonna say 6 or 7 years, I would wake up between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. almost every day. I wasn't trying to wake up. I wasn't setting an alarm or anything, but I would stir. And I think because my brain waves were still in an alpha state of kind of half asleep, half awake, I would be more receptive to receiving messages from the universe, or messages from my higher self, whatever you want to call it. And usually those messages are just a single word or a couple of really brief sentences. And most of the time I understand them. Sometimes I don't understand them and I have to think about them. And sometimes I know that they're not specifically meant for me. They're meant for one of my loved ones. And I try to share it with them in the most subtle way without having to explain too much. But what happened a couple of months ago was I woke up at, I think it was about 3:30 in the morning, and I heard a one-word message, which is quite normal for me. And what I normally do is I grab my cell phone and I make a calendar entry, and I put the details in the notes section of the calendar entry. So that's what I was doing. Grabbed my phone off the bedside table and started to write an entry, and I heard the voice say to me, "Write this down," which is a little bit odd because that became a little bit more conversational than just a message coming in. So I sat up, and instead of using my cell phone, I grabbed my iPad because it has a keyboard and it's just much easier for me to work. And I started typing as the voice was giving me quite a lengthy message. So I'm going to share the message with you now, and then I'll explain my take on what it all means. So the single word that I heard was cocoon. And as I started writing, this is what the voice said to me. The body is a cocoon for the soul. The three-dimensional human experience is similar to that of a butterfly going through metamorphosis. The struggle to break free is what gives the butterfly the strength it needs to survive. Without that struggle, during the natural phase of emergence, the butterfly will not thrive. Humans are in constant metamorphosis. Our struggle comes in the form of karmic contracts and lessons, as well as the three-dimensional illusion of separateness and isolation from others. But we are each fragments of energy that comes from one source. Our consciousness is collective and connected, despite our sense of separateness. We are all one. For a time, we are insulated within our own cocoon, so we can grow, struggle, emerge, and ascend. So that's a mouthful. It's a lot to process at 3:30 in the morning. Those really aren't words that I would particularly use myself. And I wondered a lot about this particular message because I didn't feel like it was specifically for me. And I shared it with a couple of people, and it didn't really seem to click or resonate with them. So I've been puzzling on it for quite a while. And in the last couple of weeks, I've actually heard very similar messages. Not the same words, but really quite similar in tone and intent from some other spiritual YouTubers. So I thought, this is probably the place that I'm supposed to share this information. Because I sort of already think that way, I do believe that we are spirits or souls experiencing a three-dimensional human existence. I already believe that and feel that way, and because I have a tendency to lean towards a belief in reincarnation. I'm not sold on any spiritual beliefs, to be honest with you. And I'm, as strange as it is to be an energy worker, I am really skeptical. I'm skeptical about all that stuff. I examine and I analyze for a really long time before I adapt or adopt any belief systems or practices. So that's one of the reasons that it is quite challenging for me to talk about this. But I do already believe this. So this wasn't, or at least I partially believe it. So it wasn't very clear to me that the message was for me. But what it speaks to, or what it means, is that in the spiritual community, we believe, or we understand, or most do, that we are moving into the age of Aquarius. And one of the primary changes that we are supposed to experience as humankind is an ascension from three-dimensional consciousness to five-dimensional consciousness. People sometimes get weirded out by the thought of ascension because religious people tend to think of ascension as death and ascending to heaven. And that's not what this is about. It really is truly a change in awareness and perception of reality. So a change from a three-dimensional awareness and consciousness to five-dimensional. And what is five-dimensional consciousness? Well, I don't know completely, but certainly part of it, it's understood within the spiritual community, is that humankind will move out of a sense of separateness and ego. And when I say ego, I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm talking about the sense of self as separate, that is going to be shed, and humankind, I keep correcting myself whenever I say mankind, but humankind is going to be moving into 5-dimensional consciousness, which is a stronger understanding that we are not all separate, that we all come from the same source. Whether you believe in creationism or you believe in the Big Bang Theory, in my opinion is those could possibly be the same thing. We all come from one source. Even if you believe we're all descendant of Adam and Eve, our DNA is descended from their DNA. If we evolved from single-celled organisms, we still all come from that source. And that means we are all connected in a sense. So the notion is that 5-dimensional consciousness will change us in such a way that we shed that sense of separateness and that we embrace that we are all one and that we are all working towards the same goal. And ultimately, the goal, the understanding of the goal, or maybe not so much the goal, but our reality will be that we are moving more towards unconditional love of one another and also of the earth. There is also a very strong belief that ascension from 3-dimensional consciousness to 5-dimensional consciousness is a healing process. So it's healing humankind of all the negativity and all the shadow that I talk about in the other videos. But what is the problem that we're facing? The problem we're facing is that we are really weighed down by negative thoughts, emotions, and belief, which is what I talk about on this channel. I'm trying to encourage people to work at eliminating that negativity, that darkness, the shadow side, and elevating your vibrational frequency, which I know is such a strange term. I get it. But it's elevating your spirit, your feelings, your core, giving you a sense of core contentment. Because if you don't do that, you won't vibrate at the right frequency to ascend from 3-dimensional to 5-dimensional consciousness. If you think about our consciousness as a bunch of balloons, helium-filled balloons, right now they're weighed down by negative emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. They're weighed down because that energy is heavy. It's dense. But as we shed those darker emotions, the negative emotions, as we shed that density, that heaviness, then we will be more in a position, or our souls or our spirits will be in more of a position to ascend to a different level of consciousness. And the idea is, or the understanding is, that shift in consciousness is not only going to be very healing to humankind and get us into the consciousness that people think of, let's say, as Christ consciousness. I am not myself a Christian. I'm not any religion. I'm very spiritual, but I do understand what is meant by Christ consciousness. Love of mankind, humankind. Sorry, I keep catching myself on that. But it's a love of humankind. But we also believe in the spiritual community that this ascension and this healing is also going to heal the planet. So Mother Earth, often referred to as Gaia, has a consciousness of its own. And she, we'll just refer to her as she, because in many myths throughout many cultures over the length of time that humans have been on Earth, the Earth is considered to be feminine. and she is essentially the master empath. So she has been filtering and absorbing the negativity of humankind for 200, well, millions of years, but we've been on the planet for 200,000 years. Humankind is believed to have been around for 200,000 years. So she's been absorbing all of that negativity, and she's tired. She's getting sick. She's, she's struggling. That's what the spiritual community believes. I'm on the fence about that. It's maybe a little bit out there for me, but I do believe that humankind needs to shift its consciousness and also needs to shift its attitude. Let's just call it an attitude. There's so much negativity. What we've been going through in our societies this year should be a wake-up call for everyone. Instead of coming together to support one another, there seems to be almost a little bit more negativity, which is tough to watch. So we really do need to heal ourselves. And that's really, to me, what this message is about. It actually reminded me of, there's a really sweet video on YouTube by a gentleman called Rabbi Twersky, I think his name is. And he tells a story about a lobster. It's very similar in nature to the message of the butterfly going through a transformation, needing that struggle in order to evolve or to strengthen and to be able to thrive out in the world. So I'm going to link that below in the description box. So thanks for entertaining me on my birthday by listening to me ramble and be strange. That's what I am. And yeah, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, I do have a lot of messages like that. And many of them, they really are spiritual, and they seem to be inspirational. At least that's how I feel they were to me. I would be more than happy to share them if you're interested. So do click the thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you'd like to watch more content like this. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day. Bye.